Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at Xubuntu. Xubuntu is an Ubuntu-based, as you might have guessed, operating system based on Xfce. And the latest release right now is 24.10. That's what I'm going to be taking a look at. This is the October edition. It comes out twice a year, and the big LTS is typically 20x.04. And the release here, the latest 24.10, is referred to as Oracular Oriole, whatever that is. But it's a cool sounding name anyway. So, anyways, here I'm out at the download page, and I'm going to just go ahead and download this, and then we'll see how it is. Scrolling down a little bit, you can see here is the latest release. Above that was the LTS release, which is 24.04. So we want the 24.10 so we can see what's new, if any. So here we got torrents downloads, or we can go over here to the mirror downloads and download something. So I'm just going to select the United States mirror here and just get the ISO directly. And that kind of makes things easier. Then I'm going to load it in and I'll be right back. Okay, here I am. I'm loading this in now. Here's the live ISO. So I'm just going to hit enter here, load this in, and we'll see the live environment loading in here any second now. And then once we get into the live environment, we'll do a quick install. And it usually takes a minute or so for all the data to populate here for the live environment, but shouldn't take too long. And here we go. We're into our desktop. Nice. So nice looking background right off the bat. It's just got a nice look to it. And here we got our Whisker menu up here on top. So it's a top bar. And then over here we got our other stuff like the different elements like the sound and so forth. So let's just get right to it. I'm going to pop over here and just jump right into our installer. So we'll open that right up and we'll just install it. This is Ubuntu's newer installer. They're no longer using the Ubiquity, I don't think. So this is kind of cool looking. I'm just going to go with all these defaults, and I'm going to choose the interactive. You can go with automated really here, but for the sake of being descriptive, I'm going to go with that. And then here I'm going to check these two boxes here for third-party software for graphics and also the media type codecs. So that's good to check. And then I'm just going to let it erase the disk here and just kind of do its thing. You can also choose manual installation if you have a special setup. But typically, if you just want to erase everything, then go for it. That's where you choose your drive. Now I'm going to just type in my name, a username, and then a password. And I'm just going to use a lame password, so it's telling me it's weak. But that's okay. I like weak, especially this week. Okay, so we're going to hit next here, and by default, it's given our time zone, which is good. And then over here we got our choices to review, and I like it all, so I'm just going to hit install. So really it's just a pretty straight up standard installer, not rocket science to figure it out. I'll be right back when it's done. Wow, that was quick. It only took like a half a second here after editing. So I'm restarting now and actually shut down, and I'm back in. And so now we're rebooting, and I'm going to see if this worked. And if it didn't work, then I probably won't make the video. But it did, so here I am. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. So it looks like everything went fine, and we should be coming into our Xfce desktop environment any second. And here it is, so cool. And now we got a black screen. Okay, so it looks like it crashed a little bit there on login. So let's try that again and see if I get logged in this time. Maybe it didn't work. Okay, there's our desktop again. And is it going to hold up? It is. Okay, so here we got our calendar. This is our top bar is up on top here. And then we got our audio settings here. And then over we got our presentation mode. That's kind of handy when you want to not be interrupted by the lock screen and so forth. And then do not disturb, which I think will turn off notifications. And then over here we got our networking stuff. Excellent. And then our Whisker menu right over here on the left-hand side. So that is looking good. Of course, I would probably modify this a little bit. This has got the categories on the right-hand side as opposed to the left. I'm going to open my terminal up here too, because the first thing I like to do is I like to go in here. Let's do a neo fetch. Nothing. So I want to install that. So I'm just going to run the updates real quick, and then we'll just kind of take a quick look at things with a neofetch. So I'm just going to do a sudo apt update and then 2 ampersands, which means and sudo apt upgrade. So that way it'll update our repos and then it'll upgrade our system, which is technically just an update, but you know, they got to distinguish between the two. So that was quick and easy. So we get our update. So now I'm going to do a sudo apt install and then neofetch, just so we can kind of get a quick overview here on our console. And so I'm just going to press enter, let that install. And that shouldn't take long at all either, especially through the console. That's my preferred way of installing things, actually. Okay, so there we go. So now I'm just going to type neofetch, and there we go. I like it. So it shows that we're running Ubuntu 24.10 with the 6.11 kernel here, and then Xfce 4.18 with a Graybird theme. I think they said in the documentation that we're actually running 4.19 for Xfce, which is kind of the beta for 4.2. That might be why we crashed there on login, because it's a little bit of a beta of sorts as well for the Xfce desktop. So there might be some minor instability happening there. Not sure. It could have been a fluke too. Anyways, I'm going to go to panel and just open up our panel preferences. I right-clicked there to get to panel preferences. I'm going to unlock the panel, and I'm just going to move that down to the bottom. I'm perfectly happy with it on top, but I think a lot of people are more comfortable with it on the bottom. Either way, I want to show you the option. And then I'm making the bar a little bit bigger, so the panel is now 29. And then I'm going to just set that to dark mode. That'll change some of our windows to a dark mode and our menu as well. So that's kind of nice. And then in here, these are all the items that correspond to the bar down here, to the panel. And you can see them all listed here. And then if you want to add something, we can just hit the add button. And then we can add in something like, I'm going to use the show desktop. I just typed in show there to bring it up in the filter, and I hit add. Now when I close it, you can see it in the list, and it's also down there in the lower right hand corner. Anything that's new added gets added to the lower right hand corner, and I like that right where it is. So I'm just going to close that out, and I'm going to right click on the icon and then select properties. This will be the properties for our Whisker menu. And so here we can change different things about our menu. So I like to select show as icons, and then under appearance, I want the position categories to be on the left hand side instead of the right. And then for behavior, I want it to switch categories when I hover my mouse over the different categories. So now if I come over here, you can see that the categories are on the left hand side, and when I hover over them with the mouse, then they switch the categories automatically, which is nice. So I like that. That's nicer. That's a little bit more suited to my taste. So I'm good with that. And what else? I think I'm going to come back here to general, and I'm going to make my icons a little bit bigger here, I think. So I'm going to size up from smaller to small, and then here I'm going to go very small to smaller. Excellent. And then maybe I'll just tweak my width and height here on the Whisker menu too. I'm going to beef that up, I think, maybe to 600 and 650. So 600 there and 650 there. Then I need to click in another field here to make it activate. And now I come over here, and now you can see that it's taller and wider. I guess it didn't really have to be 650 tall. So easy peasy there on changing the size. Excellent. So I'm going to close that because I think that's good. And now from here, I think I'm just going to look at some of the stuff that's on here. So it looks like all pretty much the standard stuff. Got the Mate calculator. I like that. Here's our file manager. I'm going to open up Thunar. Here we got our file manager, and I'm just going to add that to the panel. All I did was right click on that icon, and now you can see it in the panel. So I'm just going to right click, select move, and then move my mouse over to the edge here. And I didn't move it far enough. So let me right click again, move it over to the edge, and I did it again. I'm going to come back over here, right click, select move, and then I'm just going to move my mouse cursor right next to the Whisker menu icon, and then it'll set in right there. So you got to be sure to get to the other side of that window. Forgot what they call that, the window thingy. So I'm going to do the same thing with the terminal. I'm going to right click, add to panel, right click, select move, and then bring my cursor over next to the folder. And now we got them both there in the panel. And then one more time with Firefox. So I like to have these three things readily available. And again, right click, select move, bring my cursor over next to the terminal icon, and there we go. So now we got all three right there. Easy peasy. Ah, it crashed again. Yeah, so apparently there is a stability issue here with Ubuntu with this version, or maybe it's with Xfce 4.18. I'm kind of leaning towards it might be just an Xfce 4.19 issue here, given that that's a beta, even though the NeoFetch is showing 1.8, but I think it's 1.9 is actually what's in there, I suspect. So anyways, what else do we got here? We got different games under the games category, and that kind of looks interesting. Maybe I'll just open that and see what's in that collection, puzzle collection. And there's also Sudoku there as well. So in the puzzle collection, we got, wow, a ton of stuff. Bridges, cube, a lot of things here. Nice, I'm liking it. Galaxy also has mines in there as well. Nice. And pegs. Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that game. I used to play that a lot. Let's open it up and see if my IQ is above 80. Let's see. We'll just kind of move some pegs. It's been a while since I played this game, probably since I was a kid. But we'll do this and that and this. We'll move this. Nice. I got this. I'm going to clear this baby. Because I'm a genius. An unstable genius. And move that. Uh-oh. Okay. So much for genius. Next. That was cool. Yeah, I like that game. That's kind of fun. That's a nice little collection there. Good way to doodle some time when you get bored. And here we also, under graphics, we got a GIMP installed, which is nice. Ristretto for our viewer for graphics. And under internet, we got our App Center, Firefox. Nice. A nice email client. Then under Office, we got LibreOffice, and then settings. We got the usual stuff that we would find in our settings manager. And then under systems, we got our task manager, Xfce terminal, Synaptic package manager, nice. Disk usage analyzer, which is great as well. There's our GW package installer and our App Center. Great. Let's look at our App Center here real quick. I'm going to just open this up. So this is like the Ubuntu App Center, and here you can install applications either via Snap or the repos. So we got a lot of different things in here. These are some of our recommended things, and we got other categories like productivity. We got Chromium and Firefox, Brave, Mailspring, Mail Client. I think we're using Thunderbird by default here on Ubuntu, if I remember right when we were scrolling through the categories. There's events. That's a PDF viewer that was next to Ocular, which is the KDE version, which is also nice. I'm just going to install events here. And under the channel, you can see we got the latest stable, but I could also have chosen the 46.3, which is like the latest candidate, which is like a release candidate. And so could be less stable, but I went with the stable. But I like that it gives you that choice. That's nice that you get that drop down there and you can choose from different versions there. So I like that. And then under the development category, we got all the fun stuff for if you're a programmer or just like to hack like me. And then games, there's Zero AD right up on top. And featuring other cool things too, like DOSBox. I'm going to go in the search window here and I'm going to type in Inkscape, and just to show that we can find apps that way as well. And by default, it's filtering by snap packages, but I could also filter by Debian. But if we click on that, you should be able to see both anyway, I think. So if we go in here again, we can choose from our stable. We can go with latest edge, latest candidate, and so forth. And you can see the dates next to them too. So some of them, one goes back to 2022, the stable is 23. This candidate, though, is from January 24. So that's like the most recent. I'm just going to choose that one for fun and hit install. Of course, if you need stability, just going with the stable version. But I find these candidates very stable. I've never really had any issues with them. And so there you can see under graphics, it's installed just fine. So that is the app installer. And then under here, under manage, here you can see if anything needs updated. And it looks like 4 apps here need to be updated. So that is kind of a thing you can refer to if you want to see what needs updated. I can pop in here and just let that update. And it's kind of good to do that anyway, periodically. Make sure your apps are updated. And I believe that'll update both your snaps and your repo items that were installed by the repo, I think. And so that is updated. Nice. Let's take a look at our system settings here and just kind of, I know we've done this a lot before in other videos on Xfce, so I won't mess around too long, but here we can change our avatar. So if you got any pictures on file, you can select them there. And then we got our appearance, and here we got our different themes. Graybird Dark is one I kind of like. And Adwaita Dark is nice too, but I kind of lean towards the dark themes, so I'm going to go with the Graybird Dark, and then the elementary Xfce Dark for the icons. That way they show up better. And I'm kind of liking the XF or the elementary dark icon, so I'm probably going to stay with that. But you also have a choice with the humanity dark, and those are nice looking icons too. But yeah, I'm thinking with this setup, I'm kind of liking the elementary even better. And then you got our settings over here. These kind of correspond to like our buttons and menus. So here by default, icons are being displayed on the buttons, but if you don't want them displayed, you can uncheck right there, and then the icons disappear on your buttons. And same goes for your menus. So if we go over to a menu on Thunar, you can see all the items have little icons next to them. If I uncheck that box and go back, the icons disappear. So if for some reason icons annoy you, you can turn them off right here in the appearance settings. Personally, I like them both on, so I'm just going to turn them back on. I don't really know why you'd want to turn off the graphics, but there you go. And then we got something like event sounds, if you want to turn on your event sounds. To me, event sounds are somewhat annoying, so I just leave those off, but glad to see they're off by default. I just clicked on desktop and it crashed again. So I'm going to log back in. That crash seems to be fairly benign. It doesn't really seem to be like doing anything bad. Of course, if I was in the middle of a document, that would be annoying. So I just right-clicked on the up and brought up desktop settings from the desktop. But I should be able to click on it again back here in system settings and bring it up without it crashing. So I'm going to close it and then do it from here. And this time it didn't crash. Okay. So I just want to make sure that the same thing, the crash must be somewhat random, and maybe it's related to graphics. I don't know. It could just be me and my system. You may not experience the same thing, but as of the time of this video, I'm getting crashes. Again, that could be resolved in an update as well. But I like this wallpaper. I forgot to comment on it, but the watercolor type effect is really nice, so I like that. And so here I just selected in our menus to show application menu on right click on the desktop. And then here under our desktop icons, I could select like show icons on primary display if I want. Typically I just kind of leave this at its default. And then over here under file launcher icons, you got like your home, your trash showing up, network, but I'm not seeing them on my desktop actually, so that's weird. I'm not sure what's up with that. When I check file system, we should also see another icon appear. So I don't know why I don't have icons. I might, yeah, nothing. Let me just hit F5, and that brought them up. So F5 will refresh your desktop, and so I pressed that, and that seemed to bring up the icon. So that could be another little bug here, maybe in this release or with Xfce. That is happening because I don't think those icons loaded when I logged in initially. So apparently you got to hit F5 to refresh the desktop manually to get those to show up. So I'm thinking that's kind of another little maybe bug or stability issue. And I'm not ruling out the possibility that it's just me too. There you can show hidden icons if you like. So coming back into our settings manager again, there you got panel profiles if you want to modify your panel a certain way like we did. And then you could save that as a profile and then just load it in if you like messing with different profiles. Here we got our window manager settings, and the style, that refers to the top of the window there. So like if I click something like that setting, it turns blue. And so you can kind of change the look of the top part of your window there. And that's kind of cool to be able to go through there and change it around a little bit. And some of them kind of have a Windows look to them and so forth. So nice. I'm just going to stay with the default, I think. And then over here, you can change your title font. That's up at the top of your window there. So if I wanted to, like, say, just make it italic, I could do that. I could give it a different font or make it bold. There's an italic look. That actually looks kind of cool. You can also place it over on the left-hand side if you want, or on the right, or the good old center by default, which is where I like it actually. And then this part corresponds to your buttons up here and the other things on top. So like these buttons are draggable. I can just grab this and drag it over to the other side, and then it'll show up on the other side of my window. And I can just move all these buttons over here. And then I could take this guy and put it back over there. And now everything's switched around. So that's kind of more like a Mac where you would have these over on the left side. So if you like that kind of layout, you can do it right here. Easy peasy. And I'm just going to slide these back to where they were, roughly. I don't remember exactly what order they were in, but I think it was something like that. So there you go. That's how you can just kind of mess with your button layout. And yeah, there we go. I think that kind of looks right to me. And then over here, we got your keyboard. So here you can look at your keyboard shortcuts and so forth. Like for closing window, by default is Alt F4. But if I wanted to change that, I can hit Edit and then just press the key like Super Q. And then Super Q will now close a window. So if I open something like Thunar here, and then I press Super Q, it'll close just like that. So if you like keyboard shortcuts, that's a nice handy thing there. And then over here on Advanced, we got more options and the focus as well, but I don't typically change those. I think the defaults are good. Then if we go into our window manager tweaks, here I typically keep everything at their default. The only thing I'll usually tweak is over here under compositor. You got placement too. So if you want to open up a window, like you want to open that, it opened up under my mouse cursor because I selected under mouse cursor instead of center. So again, if I came way over here and I opened up something like, let's say one of these games again, it'll open up where my mouse cursor is. So that's kind of a cool setting if you like it to open under your mouse cursor. But by default, it opens in the center. And then here under compositor, you can change your transparency here. I like doing the transparency during window move. So if I back off that slider a little bit to around 90%, then when I move my window around, now you can see a little bit of transparency there, a little less opacity. So that's kind of cool. And then we got our workspaces, which I think I'll mess with in a little bit there. I like using workspaces. Some people don't. By default, there's no more than one workspace activated. But then here we got our keyboard settings, and I'd like to turn on my num lock. So I'm going to just check that box because I use my num lock fairly often. So I like that to be intact when I come back. Then we got our application shortcuts. So here we can, again, add some keyboard shortcuts for different specific apps if you want to open up. And then back out here we got our screensaver settings. Personally, I like the screensaver and the lock screen turned off. So here you can turn things off one at a time here, or you can just do it universally up here on the top. And then the same for the lock screen, come up here. You can just turn the whole works off right up there on top. If you're like me, don't want the lock screen and all that. And that's kind of me. And then we got our display settings. So by default, My display loads in at 1920 by 1080, but if you want to change that resolution for whatever reason, that's the spot to do it. And so back to all settings. Here we got like printers. There's no printer installed here on this virtual machine, but this is where you can add it in, and it's easy peasy. Unless you got some funky printer that's not compatible with Linux, you should be fine. It should auto detect your printer, especially if it's an HP or an Epson and so forth. Here we got our session and startup. So here, typically what I use this for is application auto start. So if you want a certain thing to start up, or if you write a script and you want it to start up automatically at startup, this is the place you can add it. And then you can also remove things from the startup just by unchecking the box. And then here's our time and date settings for your clock. And by default, everything is pretty much auto detected. But if you want to tweak more finely on your clock settings, you can actually do that from down here in your panel. So you can right click on your panel and select panel preferences, or come up here in the settings and select panel here. And when you do that, it'll open. Let me do it down here. So let's go into our panel preferences down here, which is the same thing. And then we go into our items list here, and I come down to clock, and then if I select this little wrench, I can click on that guy, and then here we can see our tooltip format. And so that's like when you hover over. So we can change our format. By default, it's got the long format here, so when I hover over the clock, you can see it down there just as it is. But if I change it, now you can see that it matches the format which I changed it to. Then you got like week 42, or you can do a custom format. But I like the default. I think the default is good. And then here you can show time only if you want, without the date, even though the date's kind of in there because it's a custom format. And then here you can change your font for your time. But here we got the custom format, and I think I'm going to actually change the format here too, so we can see some other options. But let's come up here and select date and time again. So that way we got both options. And as you can see, you can change your font settings separately for the date and for the time, which I really like. That's a very cool feature in Xfce that I think is really nice. You can also do time then date if you want the time first. And I think I kind of like it that way. So I'm going to stick with that. And then with our format, we can change it here. By default, it's year, month, and then day. But if you want something different, like say abbreviated October 20th, 2024, you could do that, which is cool. And then here under your custom time format, I could actually remove the date part there because it's kind of redundant. Or I could come up here and select something preset, like just our time. So here's a 24-hour time. And then we got the 24-hour time with seconds. I like it. And it looks like it made another error. I'll just hit don't send. And then back to our format without seconds, I think is good. And I think I'm going to make this time bold. And I beefed up our font size too, just one step. So now we got a bold time with a normal font date. And that's kind of how I like it. I think that's a good setting there. So we'll go with that. I like it. So that's how you can custom tweak that. I'm going to make my bar a little bigger here, my panel, a little taller. That kind of looks better with the clock. So I beefed that up to 33 pixels there. I think that's better. Liking that. What else can I do? Let's go back in the panel again. Let's add something. So let's go in our panel preferences again and go to items. And then I'm going to go up here and hit add. And let's put in our weather app. I really like Xfce's weather thingy here. So we'll hit close. And now if I come down here and I hit weather update and click on our wrench to go into the settings, over here we got our location by default, which is auto detected, and then appearance, and then scroll box. And I'm going to get out of the way again. Here I'm going to select temperature from our drop-down list, and then I'm going to hit plus to add it in. And now you can see our temperature next to the icon there, which is nice. So I'm going to close that, And then I'm going to move my weather thing. But instead of right-clicking this time and moving it, I'm going to do it from the list here. So I got the weather update selected, and then I just hit this up arrow. And every time I hit that up arrow, it's going to slide it over there on the panel. And so I clicked it up until it went over to there. That's about where I like it, just to the left of the networking thing. Then I'm going to add in a separator. So I just clicked that and add, and now we got a separator, which by default goes down here at the bottom. So again, I'm going to move that up to just before the weather update, between the status tray and weather update. And so now you can see the separator there, and I like that separator to be invisible. So I'm going to go into the little wrench there setting, and I'm going to select transparent, and now it has disappeared so you can't see it. If you hit expand, it'll actually expand your separator and push it way over there. But I kind of like it where it is, so I'm going to hit close. And there we go. So now we got our weather, and when you click on it, you can kind of see an expanded forecast there for the next few days. And it all looks sunny. No rain. Nice. So that is our weather app. Very cool. So I'm going to close that window. And what else can we do? Okay, let's go into LibreOffice. Since we changed the theme earlier to the dark theme, you want to also go into LibreOffice. Like I use Calc a lot, and when you change the theme doesn't update in the LibreOffice. It doesn't really auto-detect. So what you got to do is go into Tools here and Options, and we got to change this to a dark theme. So I'm just going to select View here, and then under by default, we got the elementary theme here, which is really geared towards a light theme. So to change this, all we got to do is go into the drop-down list and find something that has a dark designation, like Calibre Dark is one. So if I select that and hit apply, now you can see all the icons light up and they're easy to see because it's really geared towards a dark theme. Nice. And then there's a whole bunch of different other themes in here. You can always experiment with them. I don't see a lot that say dark next to them though, so I'm going to stick with the Calibre, and that looks better. So that's just something to keep in mind if you use LibreOffice and you run into that issue. Here I'm going to open up Thunar here, and I just want to just tweak some settings in here real quick. Side pane, I like to check the image view box. That way, if you select an image file, you can see a little preview down there in the lower left corner. And then if we go to Edit and Preferences, I like to change our date format for today. Files that are added today, I like to have the timestamp there instead of it just referring to today. So that's another thing I changed. So we want to change to List View first. So once we select List View, then if we go up to View, we'll see an extra item here in our selection, and it's called Configure Columns. And what I like to do is I like to uncheck the automatically expand columns. That way, if I slide a column over here like this, it'll stay that way. If the checkbox is checked, then those columns will expand and push back out again the next time you open it. So if you don't want it to do that, that's how you cure that problem. Just go to Configure Columns. And then that way, when you turn off the expansion, it'll stay wherever it is that you set it the next time you open it. And then finally, let's go into our settings and let's take a look at workspaces. By default, it's only using the one workspace, but we can add more here if we want. Let's say 4. So I could put in 3 more workspaces. And if you like working with workspaces, this is pretty handy. Now I just went to my panel settings again. And under items, I'm going to add in another item here. So I hit add, and I'm going to type in workspace. And there's an item in here called workspace switcher. So this little widget I'm going to add in, and now it's here at the end by default. So I'm going to hit close. And I'm going to slide that over. So again, I'm going to select that, and I'm just going to click my up arrow and just keep moving that until it gets to right about there. So here we got our workspace switcher, and so now if I hit these other workspaces, here you can see workspace 1, and you can see the little graphic in there that represents this panel setting. Now it's gone. So if I open up again here, you can see it represented that little graphic. And when I slide this around, you can see the graphic sliding around inside the workspace area as well, which is cool. And then when I switch my workspaces, you can see that the wallpaper is also different. It's back to the default. You can set this to have the wallpaper the same on all workspaces, or you can have them, different on all the workspaces, each one. Got to log back in again. Yeah, those random crashes, that's kind of bogus. So, okay, back to where we were. Going to open this guy up again. Here we can see. Now if I go to Workspace 2, you can see I'm going to go and do our desktop settings and change the wallpaper. So if I want to change the wallpaper just for this workspace, I can uncheck this Apply to All Workspaces box and then select a wallpaper, and then it'll stay the same on each workspace. Will have its own wallpaper. So I'm liking that. So instead of applying to all workspaces, I just uncheck the box. And then same with Workspace 3, I can come over here, do the same thing, right click, desktop settings, and then choose another wallpaper. And I can come down there and maybe choose that one. And then hit close. Because Apply to All Workspaces is unchecked. Want to make sure that's unchecked. Okay, so now I got a separate wallpaper for each workspace. Nice, I'll just close that. So now Workspace 1, Workspace 3, and then 4 has the original one. So here now we got separate wallpaper on each workspace. So that's kind of a little thing that's kind of nice with Workspaces. If you like to kind of separate your work, maybe have Office opened up on Workspace 3 and maybe your web browser on 2 and something else on 1. You can kind of organize your desktops that way a little bit with the workspaces. So that is cool. And with that, I think I'm ready to do my 2.5 cents. I can't think of anything else to look at. So I'm just going to give my comment here. This is Xubuntu is probably one of my favorite Ubuntu spins here. Just because I like Xfce so much. And typically I like anything Debian based for its stability. And Ubuntu is typically quite stable, although I like Debian better if I were going to choose between the two. Just straight up Debian. However, I've rarely ever had issues with Xubuntu. It seems like during this review, though, I've had this desktop crash here where opening certain things seems to crash it. And I'm not sure what the random crashing is about. I don't know if it's just related to my hardware or if there's some kind of issue going on with Xfce, maybe the 4.19 beta that's under the hood there that's going on. If I read that correctly, if it's 4.18, then it could be something going on in the distro itself. I don't know, but that's something that kind of needs to be dealt with if that's an issue beyond my machine. But other than that, it's got the classic Ubuntu coolness that I like to it. All the apps that I like using are pre-installed by default. And the icon's not showing up. Again, I think seems to be kind of bug related there. And again, updates are coming in all the time. So this could be remedied even by the time you see this video. So take what I'm saying with the bugs with a grain of salt, because they may be gone by the time you get in here and play around with it. And if not, let me know. I'd kind of like to hear in the comments if you're having issues or if it's just me. But really beautiful layout. I just like the way everything is almost by default. I don't even mind it being on top actually, but like I said, I like doing my personal tweaks and sharing them with you here on the video. So that's why I kind of moved the panel bar around a little bit and added some items like the weather and all that. And then of course you got snaps, and I think snaps are good. I never really have any issues with snaps, and that's a good way to get some latest and greatest software. Between snaps and Flatpaks, I think you can have anything that's somewhat mainstream as far as apps go on your desktop. Even if you're running something like Stable, Debian Stable, or Ubuntu LTS. So it's kind of an equalizer when it comes to apps, and I like that too. So overall, I got to give this a 1.5 thumbs up. There we go, 1.5 thumbs up because there is some little bugs going on there. And if it's just me, then it deserves 2 thumbs up. But for now, 1.5. So that's our Ubuntu review, and I hope this was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up for me. That's really good for the algorithm and even helps grow my hair back. Other than hitting the thumbs up, also, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.